This week's tip is about how to cast on stitches at the beginning or the end of a piece. And you sometimes see this, like in buttonholes, where you want to cast on stitches in the middle. And you have a variety of ways that you can do it. The most common way is the E-cast on. I don't need that needle yet. And for the E-cast on, you wrap it around your thumb over, make the loop, and then you put the loop on your needle. I always do that wrong. And there are a variety of ways to do E-cast ons. There's backward loop, but I find this one works the best. The other's a little too loose. And I'll put on 4 stitches. Now, I've got my 4 stitches here, and I'm going to work to the end. The E-cast on, it has a lot of drawbacks, and you can see one right here. Notice that you've got a lot of slack there, and you have to tighten it up. That's why in gloves, when I'm doing this to, like for the thumb gusset, I generally just don't even use it. I just work to the next stitch and then make an E on my return trip. You can see it's big and loopy. And there we go. And in my blog I'll have photos of this. Now I want to extend stitches on this side, and it's the same thing. Now what I can do, 2, 3, 4, there we go. Now I'm going to purl my way across. And those E-loops are just a little hard to work, and sometimes they can drop off the needle and you got all that excess yarn. So this is kind of my least favorite way. Also, depending on what your project is, this obviously is not going to provide any support for your project. It's pretty loosey and goosey, and so if I'm doing this and that edge is going to be seamed, or I'm going to be picking up stitches, I want to make sure that I don't use those loops for those things, that I go into the stitch above them. For example, okay, let's look at this. I wouldn't want to be picking up or seaming these loops. I'd want to be seaming or picking up here. Now, the advantage of the E-loop is it's not going to provide any bulk, so the seam isn't going to be all that bulky. But you could maybe place them in there. That's still kind of loopy. I'd probably go up there. Now, one thing that will drive some knitters crazy if they are really interested in symmetry is that clearly I've got one more row on this side than that side. Big deal. What's going to happen when you work this is that it's going to be imperceptible. You're not going to notice it at all. Now, another technique that you can use is the knitted cast on. And how it works, a lot of times this is one that knitters learn first, and you just basically knit and twist it, put it on, and pull it tight. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, one thing that can happen is that if you're casting on a bunch and you kind of can forget, sometimes this thing can look like one of the new stitches. You want to make sure that you trace that from that selvage stitch and count from here. Now you can see that this is a more firm edge, and I'm going to knit my first row. And the advantage of it is that if you're meticulous, kind of like me sometimes, that when you get to this point and it's time to cast on for the other side, it bothers me that I would do this knitted. You can always work it purlwise. So I'm going to do the same thing, loop it up, purl, and pull it a little tight. Oh, wait a sec, I dropped it because I'm not paying attention. Okay, purl. I'm going to put it on my stitch. I'm going to pull it tight there. Purl, 2, pull it tight. 3. So I've got 1, Okay, now that's where it looks confusing. That one looks like it might be part of this, the new stitches, but no, it's coming out of there. Now I'm going to purl. Okay, I've got my 4 stitches. Now I will purl that first row. 1, 2, 3. And in my blog I'll have photos of these so that we can see them. And again, this will provide a slightly firmer edge, but you know, depending on your yarn, if I'm using chunky yarn and I'm doing this, that might be an additional bit of bulk I don't want. And so you can see that it's a bit loopier. It's still kind of loopy. And again, I'll have photos of these and I'll have them pinned so you can see the difference clearly. Now the final way is the cable cast on, and if you need something that is going to provide a lot of support, if something heavy is going to be hanging off this edge, say you're picking up stitches, you might want to consider this one. Now with a cable cast on, you generally insert your needle between the stitches, but to start it I wouldn't recommend that because that's going to leave a great big old hole there. When I'm using this to add on stitches, I do it regular wise. Hey George. And then I do the regular cast on. So I've got 1, 2, and this provides a very firm edge. 3, 4. Okay, and then I knit that first row. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I work across my row as normal. And I'll do the same thing. The cable cast on can be worked purlwise as well. George, get away from there. Gosh, it's a pain in the butt sometimes. So I'm going to purl my first stitch. Okay. Then I'm going to insert my needle between. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the E cast on, or the loop cast on, does require a lot less, but it is a little trickier. Hey Petty Paw. George went and woke her up. He's such a bad kitty. And there we go. Now again, in my actual blog, I will have details on these methods, and I'll have photos, and I'll pin the swatches so that you can very clearly see what's going on. Okay?